Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, we have a big show. We have the Liberian Studies Association, and we're going to be introducing this group also, or reintroducing this group, the Liberian Studies Association. What we're going to be discussing tonight will be the Liberian Studies Association, its work, membership, and scholarly community. So we have both current and former leaders of the Liberian Studies Association here with us tonight to discuss this. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Please do us a favor by inviting someone, share the link, and let's discuss the Liberian Studies Association, its work, membership, and scholarly community. If you want to call the big name, is the Liberian Studies Association and Research in Liberian Development. With me to discuss, we have, that's some big people are coming call. Ms. Jackie Saye. Jackie, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Jackie, you are muted. You can unmute yourself. So Jackie, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Good evening, Dennis. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We also want to welcome Dr. Emmanuel Oreshijafo. Dr. Oreshijafo, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Good evening. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. We also have joining us Dr. George Clay Kia. This is second time on Focus on Liberia. Dr. Kia, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. Also joining us for the first time is Mr. Samuel Toh. Professor, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dr. Toh. Thank you.
Dr. Toh, sorry. Dr. Toh, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
I am pleased to be with you today.
Thanks. You. All right. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. We're going to be discussing, you can see from Dr. Oreshijafo background, the Liberian Studies Association. So by way of brief introduction, I want to start from my left, starting with Dr. George Clay Kia. He's the Dean of the Barbara Jordan McKee Leyland School of Public Affairs. He previously served in both administrative and academic roles at the University of West Georgia, right here in Georgia, where I am. Most recently, as the interim chair of the Department of Criminology. That was from 2018 to 2019. And has a full professor of political science in 2019. He also served as the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences from 2009 to 2010. Previously, Dr. Kia held administrative positions at Morehouse College. That is, he was the chair of the Department of Science. Grand Valley State University, where he was the Dean of International Affairs, and several other institutions, including Illinois Wesleyan University and the University of Memphis. Again, Dr. Kia, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Let me go to Dr. Samuel Toh. Dr. Toh, just so that Dr. Toh is a young man in a very nice tie there, if you're just wondering. He's a postgraduate researcher in RRNIPE at the University of East Anglia, UK. He served as the former Assistant Foreign Minister of Liberia from 2012 to 2014, former Peace Building Officer from 2009 to 2012 in the Office of UNIMIL, Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General for Recovery and Governance, and also former National Hearings Officer at the TRC. He is the current Vice President of the Liberian Studies Association. Dr. Toh, once again, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Emmanuel Oreshijafo. Dr. Oreshijafo is a professor of political science and public policy and the current chair of the political science department of NCCU. He's the editor-in-chief of the group that we are discussing today. That's the Liberian Studies Journal, because the Liberian Studies Association publishes the Liberian Studies Journal, for which Professor Oreshijafo is the editor-in-chief. His teaching and research interests include political economy, comparative politics, public policy, International Relations and Development Administration. He was the project director of the USAID grant entitled Institute for Democracy and Development in war-torn Liberia at the University of Liberia, and the project director for USAID grant on technology in higher education. Dr. Emmanuel Orisi Jaffa. People like to call him Dr. O for sure, but I'm not doing that here. I'm going to call him his full name, Dr. Emmanuel Orisi Jaffa. He's the editor for the Liberian Studies Journal and the managing editor of the African Social Science Review. Last but not the least, I already have comment here said, my most powerful woman. Hi, Professor Jackie, brilliant mind and queen indeed. People already started saying those things, Jackie, before I introduce you. So I needed to say that. Jackie is the Associate Director of the Institute of African Development at Cornell University. She previously taught at the State University of New York, Cortland, and at Montgomery College, Rockville, and Germantown. She's former co-chair of the Cornell International Educators Network and former president of the Liberian Studies Association. She currently serves as the General Secretary of the Liberian Studies Association. Jackie, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Now, let me get your introductory or your opening comments before we start the discussion. And this is the Liberian Studies Association, its work, its membership, and scholarly community. Let me start with you, Jackie, your introductory comments.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. We are here to bring awareness and to increase membership and information on the Liberian Studies Association and the Liberian Studies Journal. Since 1968, our goal has been to advance scholarship for service and development in Liberia. A lot of people don't know that in 1968, it was Ben Hoso and David Foley who met over work they've done in Liberia. And they've discussed and had the first Liberian Studies Conference in 1969 at Stanford. And then in 1970, Gus Libino hosted a conference at Indiana University. And then in 78 in Boston, they decided that they were going to meet regularly. The LSJ, which is the Liberian Studies Journal, had been operated independently, but in 1978, it was moved to the LSA. So we are a community of scholars working on Liberia and all things related to research in Liberia or on Liberia. So in a gist, that is what we do. We have annual meetings to go over our research, discuss, evaluate, and review all things Liberian.
Thank you, Jackie. And just briefly, how you got involved with LSA?
I was a student at Cornell when I heard about the Liberian Studies Association, and the first meeting I attended was in Northridge, California, I think. And after that, I've been attending most of the conferences.
Thank you, Jackie. Again, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Let me go to Dr. Orisi Jaffa. Your opening statement.
Well, good evening, everyone. I represent a very, very important component of the Liberian Studies Association. As my colleague, Ms. Jackie Sayegh just pointed out, the association was founded over 52 years ago. That's remarkable. And we are doing everything to continue to sustain the quality of our work. We are primarily committed from the context of academics to and also practitioners to provide a platform for both academics and practitioners to share their well-written manuscripts about how they see Liberia now and in the past, and also to address issues that are related to the socio-economic and political development of our great nation, Liberia. Having said that, we are a journal that is being peer-reviewed and highly indexed across the globe, which means that we encourage everyone and everybody who is interested in those issues that to write and submit to the editors of the Liberian Studies Journal. I should add that we have a broad depth of manuscripts that come from everywhere in the world, from the Middle East and from other parts of Africa, but our focus is on Liberia and the sub-region. So it's a pleasure to be here and to hopefully answer some questions related to the journal and how the journal is contributing to understanding of Liberia and Liberia's role in the sub-region.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dr. O. Let me go to Dr. To.
Thank you, Ja. It's a pleasure to be with you again. Once again, I'm Dr. Samuel To. I'm currently the Vice President of the Liberian Studies Association. It was 3 years back when I started attending the association annual meetings. The second time I was there, I got elected as a vice president. I think there was a general consensus at the meeting, and especially within the leadership at the time, that we need to reach out to younger scholars and younger researchers and bring that new face and sort of new dynamism. And so, with the support of the leadership, I was elected, and what I hope to do is to expand and make the association more appealing to younger researchers, but also avail the treasure trove of scholarship and research products that is available within not only the association in terms of the expertise that's there, but also that is available within the journal itself in terms of the high quality academic contributions that have come throughout the more than 56 years. So we are happy to be a part, and so far we have received the utmost support of the current leadership or the past leadership, as a matter of fact.
Thank you so much, Dr. To. Let me go to Dr. Kia.
Dennis, thanks again for inviting us to this important discussion. My three colleagues have, I believe, provided a sort of a broad brush on what the LSA does. The only dimension I will add is that I've been part of the LSA since I was a graduate student. Actually, I joined the LSA in 1984 and attended my first LSA meeting that year at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Since then, I've remained an active member, although I've not attended all of the conferences, but I've attended most of them. In recent times, I have worked with Dr. Orisa Jaffo in serving as guest editors of a couple of the volumes. It has been a very delightful experience, particularly reading articles that cover a broad spectrum of issues dealing with Liberia. And that's the point I want to end on, because in a lot of the discussion about Liberia, particularly within Liberian circles, I think the point is often missed about the importance of knowledge production. Irrespective of our philosophical differences, knowledge is very important to advancing democracy and development in Liberia, or any country for that matter. So when I hear people make derisive comments about education, it is very, very troubling. It's a great tragedy, because we are not going to move forward in Liberia unless we are able to harness the knowledge base to which the Liberian Studies Association's journal has been contributing for almost the past 60 years. And those articles that have been published in the journal have not just only theoretical significance, but policy implications as well. So my hope is that anyone who has an interest in Liberia will take a look at the journal. The journal is available online. And you will come to realize that over the last 60 years, what are we talking about? Governance in traditional politics like the Golas, to issues of physical infrastructure, the history of the country, decentralization, national integration, whatever the topic is, the arts, the humanities, the LSA journal has done quite an excellent job in bringing to bear a number of interesting articles that contribute to knowledge building. So I invite all of your viewers and all those who have, including those who have interest in Liberia, to take a look at various issues of the Liberian Studies Journal, not only just in terms of the promotion of development, democracy in the country, as I said, but for their own educational enlightenment as well. So thank you again, Dennis. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm so happy and delighted to have all of you. Let me go back to Professor Sayer and say, because quite honestly, this is new to a lot of us about the LSA. The information has been out there ever since. So sometime I kind of skimmed through a couple of years. In fact, I was invited, but the information about LSA has not really been something that a lot of us know about. Let's go back to the history. What was the need that you were trying to address for which this was established? And I just called, and I was trying to confer upon Jackie, an honorary professor, because Jackie has done so much in scholarship. So
yeah, that's
a
fine.
lot of us that know her like to say Professor Jackie, but
yeah,
he wants to say, no, don't put me. So let me come to you again. And what need did you try? What was the gap that the LSA tried to fill?
So, Dennis, the OECD said that, in sub-Saharan Africa, the government spent less than 0.5% on research. And we know that Achebe says that, in his book, There Was a Country, he says, if you do not know where the rain began to beat you, you will never know where to dry your body. I think Africa is the only continent, I feel, where people from outside can write books on Africa without quoting a single African expert, without quoting any data from the country that they are dealing with. The data would come from outside. My esteemed professors here can step in at any time. So this dearth of research is what is hampering development. One of the things that's hampering development on the continent. If you want to do work on gender, where do you go? You will go outside of Liberia. If you want to find information on conservation, where do you go? You will go outside. So this need for research to inform development is, I guess, where LSA steps in. LSA steps in to provide this research. Because if you go to the Indiana open source and you look at the journals that are there, the Liberian Studies journals, you will see that almost everything that is being discussed today has been published in that journal. You can find things, just 2 weeks ago, I think you had a discussion on Susanna Lewis, if you remember, and Matilda Newport.
Yeah.
And I was laughing because Van Holso in volume, I think 32, wrote about Matilda Newport, that there was no Matilda Newport that day. So if people knew where to go to look for information and where to do research, and I'm talking about Liberian sources, Liberian original research, and not research from the outside, I think that they will see the value and importance of LSA. That LSA not only generates knowledge, it disseminates knowledge in so many ways. And I think this is one of the things that that drew me to LSA, and I hope will draw other people to the association.
And Dr. Tripp, we can continue on that research line, before I bring in Dr. Rishi Jaffa, that whole idea of research and talk to me, and Jackie was able to share with me that Susanna Lewis, Matilda Newport, because what happened here is most of us who are there reading and say, there's no material on Liberia, but there's just so much. So talk to me about that research angle and why is it that maybe we're not reading those things that you're writing, or we're not getting it. What's
right? Right. Thank you, Ja. I like to say to some of my colleagues when we talk that there is a certain kind of historical illiteracy. I'm not using the term in any derogatory way, but I'm just saying there's a certain kind of limitation with respect to how much of history that is known across the general population. Most Liberians like to think that the most significant historical period involved in our nation's existence is 1980 and after. And so they forget about everything that came before. But as we all know, Liberia, is amongst Liberia is the oldest independent African republic, as a matter of fact. But there is, in my view, I came across the Liberian Studies Association and the treasure trove of the journal when I was doing my own graduate studies. And just like Jackie said, I can only reinforce it that there is so much. There is a rich tradition of rigorous scholarship, of original scholarship, of vast empirical collection of data from anthropology to political science to history proper. And perhaps is a reflection not only of academia or academic tradition within Liberia itself, but is a reflection of academic tradition amongst Liberians generally. So Dr. Kier's generation, Dr. O, and everybody else were that, they were the carriers of the torch of academia, if I can call it that. If there was ever a burgeoning beginning of Liberian intellectual class, I think it started with the generation that Dr. Kier and other people belong to. But I think one thing that has hampered our own generation has been, the environment domestically within Liberia has not encouraged rigorous scholarship. I mean, Jackie just made the point that I'm not sure whether the University of Liberia has a significant research budget, for example. And if such a research budget exists, I'm not sure it's a requirement for original research where data is gathered regionally or some original interpretations are brought to existing data. So to repair the lack of awareness about our own history, but even of some contemporary dimensions of our society, we will have to begin to take more interest into more rigorous academic work, into actually going into primary evidence and not only reading and accepting the opinion of the first book we read or the first article we read. That set of that kind of probing, that kind of inquisitive, that kind of critical idea has to be brought again to scholarship. But I would say that the problem is both domestic with respect to our academic institutions in Liberia, but also with respect to that tradition amongst Liberians generally. I might be wrong, but that is an observation that I can make.
No, and I think I can agree with you there. Dr. Rishi Jaffa, to what extent has the Liberian Study Journal contributed to this scholarship that we're talking about?
Thank you. The Liberian Studies Journal has made massive contribution to general understanding of social, economic, and political issues in Liberia, as I've said, and even cultural ones. I think it's very interesting when you look at the birth of the association, which goes back to 52 years. That's a very significant period because the early 1960s to the middle 1960s, when this association was formed, what accompanied it was scholarship, and that was why the journal was established. That was a very interesting period in the continent itself. That's when you saw the proliferation of newly independent countries. And some of the countries that are actually even independent today in the continent did not have their independence till, at the time when the association was formed. So we need to look at the context in which this journal, this association itself was formed. It provides the depth and breadth of understanding empirical work on Liberia, but it extended beyond that because some of those who were writing in the journal at the early period were not indigenous Liberian per se, but they were foreign scholars who have taken particular interest in issues related to Liberia. So the Liberian Studies Journal is not one of those things where you just write what you want to write. It's a place where you actually share very concrete empirical research that is being viewed and reviewed all over the world. We have members that come from every parts of the world, Nigeria, the Middle East, Israel, and Europe, and what have you. So I think the global context of what this empirical platform provides is very, very important. If you look at the legacy of those who have been part of this association, it is not something to take ordinarily or be very simplistic. It is a legacy of serious work and an uncompromised understanding about what Liberia represents to the rest of the world. That's really my view. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that the members are from all over. I mean, why this specific interest in Liberia?
Well,
All over the
because
world writing about Liberia.
yeah, because you have to understand some of these folks were part of several associations, like the African Studies Association, which basically, hopefully, I think may have predated the Liberian Studies Association. But however, what the founding fathers of this association, our association, the Liberian Studies, did is to maintain the autonomy and the direction of what they want to represent. That there may be some other groups in North America that were focusing on research on Liberia, but we have our own profound approach to it. For example, you have scholars and young PhD students who had gone to Liberia either through Friends of Liberia, or some of them have been part of the missionary group to Liberia. And, they took a natural interest in Liberia. But, education itself is not supposed to be, or the educational experience through the Liberian Studies Journal or any experience is not supposed to be suppressive. So it shouldn't be anything new to some of us. Why Liberia? Well, look at the history of Liberia itself. As one of two countries that never went through these formal colonization that some of the other countries in the 60s went. Liberia represents a beacon of hope, at least at some point about Africa itself. So there's a genuine interest in Liberia, I have to say, from these scholars, and that is not to suggest that some folks are not parochial about the way they feel about Liberia. That's why we are there, to review it and to make sure those information are accurate. And when it's not accurate, you have other scholars who are going to provide positions that juxtaposes it. That's the beauty of education. That's the empirical indication that we are serious about what is being projected, at least from our scholars. And I think Samuel touched about the importance of empiricism in his response to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kia. In simple English, how will you describe the Liberia Study Journal, selling it to the rest of Liberians, who don't know? Because all of you now, it's like, this is Dr. Kia, this is Dr. To, this scholars. So how will you describe it? Is it for scholars only, or because you were in graduate school when you joined, but I don't know if you're having that success now to have people in graduate school be part of it. So tell me about what is it about and how does it appeal to people that are outside academia?
Well, I mean, as my colleagues have said, although the articles in the journal come from both specific disciplinary perspectives, as well as a number of them are interdisciplinary, but I don't believe that one really needs to have degrees in those areas to really be able to read a journal. I mean, the articles in there are such that I believe that anybody can really read them. And as my colleagues have said, and I've made a point before, I mean, this is not peculiar to Liberia, particularly, but given our own circumstances of 2 civil wars and a history of struggles with democracy and development, I mean, all Liberians and those who have an interest in the country should take interest in the fact that we need information. I mean, let's you ask for simple English, Janice. We need information in order to be able to make informed policy decisions. Whether it's on education, healthcare, the physical infrastructure, whatever the policy area is, we need information. And the Liberian Studies Journal contributes to that process of information gathering. So it provides, as Dr. Toll said before, it's sort of a treasure trove that ordinary Liberians, others were interested in Liberia, and even policy makers can sort of take a look at to help inform decision making. Now, I'm not suggesting that one has to agree with the particular approaches that are taken, but you have here a wealth of information that any ordinary Liberian who really wants to be informed about the country, even if that person is not in a policy making position, can read to help really educate himself or herself. I mean, Jackie referred to the article written long ago about Martella Newport, the late Dr. Warren Dasavedo, who was an anthropologist. I mean, he did outstanding scholarly work on some of our traditional political systems. So there is a lot that the journal provides that I believe that ordinary Liberians can learn from. You don't need to really be an academic to be able to do that.
And Jackie, who can become a member? And also, other disciplines like the sciences, chemistry, biology, or people with other backgrounds, are they welcome?
Definitely. If you look at the association, our conferences that we have, if you look at, we kind of reschedule it, but if you look at it, I will give you some of the topics. We have a professor, talking about jurisprudential considerations in judicial review of Liberian statutory and constitutional provisions. We have somebody talking about the colony at Jason Carr talking about the colony at Macerado, and how it was purchased. We have students from who were they were from New Jersey at the time, talking about the road network in Liberia. Agriculture, Dr. Cyril Broderick. We have a wealth of information. The last journal, which was number, I think 42, dealt with 41, dealt with arts for development, the history of literature in Liberia. I listened the other time when there was a panelist talking about there's nothing on Liberian literature. In the Liberian Studies Journal, there's a whole history of Liberian literature. So these things are readily available on the Indiana open source website. Who can become a member? I would say anybody who's interested in Liberian studies or in Liberia. You have professors, you have the average community member, retirees, students, researchers. We have a membership form on the website. They can become a member. The member entitles them to 2 journals. I think Professor Orisi Jaffo, please step in at any time. Yeah. And the Liberian Studies Journal is also tied in with the Liberian Studies Association Conference. We need to talk about the conference. We have a conference every year at an institution, and so that the member can register and take part in the conference. They get readily informed about news. They get informed about anything we're doing back home, any project or things. So anybody can become a member of the LSA.
And Jackie, also, anytime I talk to you, you speak about primary sources, secondary yes. sources. So, yes. and not many people heard from you the way I heard it. Talk to me about the importance of this primary source and the secondary source. What are they and what's the importance? Because that's what you always get at. And then anytime you come on the show, or you stress that a lot. So I just want you to reinforce that while everyone is listening.
You see, Dennis, I talk about primary sources because it's easy to read about what somebody else wrote, like you say, and be informed or misinformed. Usually I go to the sources, I go to the references, I read, I go to Hathi Trust, I go to the Library of Congress, I read a lot of every time I write, I read a lot of the American Colonization Society's old reports. I want to know what they said. I read Edward Wilmot Blyden's letters, right? The paper I wrote on Aberport, I got Aberport papers on microfiche from Indiana University. What I'm saying is that not everybody can have access to Hathi Trust or to JSTOR or to Project Muse or to the Library of Congress. They don't know how. But if you look at the Liberian Studies Journal, coming together and bringing these sources together in written works. It informs them. So a student who's sitting in Liberia who may not have access, right, to the Library of Congress or to Hathi Trust or to JSTOR can look at the Liberian Studies Journal, because the Liberian Studies Journal has been digitized, right, Professor O? And
Yes,
some of
indeed,
them
yeah.
have been sent to the University of Liberia. So they have access to it. So primary sources are important. And I feel that the Liberian Studies Journal is one of the major primary sources of information on Liberia at this time. So I think that it is very, very important, the
Yeah.
journal.
If I can quickly add to that,
Yeah, sure.
to that comment provided by Jackie, the other way we should look at primary source, coming from somebody who have taught research methods, methodology for years, is that we're also very concerned about evidence, what is really evidentiary and how that evidence can be tested. So it's not good enough for Dr. Rishi Jaffer to write about the lack of agricultural development, and then somebody takes that information and runs away with it if it hasn't been tested. However, if Dr. Rishi Jaffer has gone to, say, Nimba Mountain or somewhere in the Nimba area and did a field study on agricultural development in Nimba, then there is a primary source because he has gone to that particular community. So based on the legacy we've created, that has been created by the 4 founders of this association, you have folks from all parts of the world who have gone to Liberia to conduct field studies. And then it's up to myself, Samuel Toe, George Kier to decide to, we want to test the validity of what this person has said. And that's why we don't take a particular position, both politically or otherwise. We leave it open for the academy, and we leave it open for the community who are not even, academics, to say, no, I don't think Dr. Rishi Jaffer is right. I think what is happening in my community, maybe in Morovia, it's a different situation. So the issue of primary source and secondary source, to those of us who are in this business, as Jackie has pointed out, is to also provide and enhance, the body of knowledge. The body of knowledge about Liberia, which is the literature we all read about Liberia, it's quite rich. And the issue of Matilda Newport in volume 32, I was the editor of the article by Professor Holso. And it took us forever to do things and make sure when it gets out there, people are absolutely informed, regardless of their disciplines, regardless of their preparation. So, primary and secondary source is very important also because of the porous of data in Africa in general. And we are at the forefront of it since 1968. That's remarkable. Yeah.
And
Thank
before
you.
I go to Dr. Toe, Professor Rishi Jaffer, just walk me through the process. We have the Liberian Study Journal, you have the conference, and then you have the Liberian Study Association. Now you get articles. Walk me through how you get an article, it's peer review, it's public, all that process, so that they can take the fear out of me if I want to give you my article.
No, you don't have no fear. We just got to make sure it's blind review so that you have the same equal opportunity to get your stuff published. Well, as my colleague Jackie has pointed out, we have the association. What comes with the association is also its own journal, its own academic journal that basically has an editorial board and has also peer reviewers who review manuscripts that are submitted. The manuscripts that are submitted, whether it's going to be about the role of the media, for example, what you do, the role of the media in civil society in Liberia or in governance in Liberia. Let's assume you write an article like that. Well, the editors receive it and they blind review the manuscript through an editorial board and also through peer reviewers who are scattered all over the place. When I say all over the place, globally, it can be in Nigeria, it can be in Liberia, it can be in the UK. So you have Liberian scholars, people who are committed to the understanding of Liberian issues all over the world, and they will review your manuscript. If your manuscript passed the threshold of what is publishable, then it gets out there. Now you're going to take responsibility for what you've written. This is where, depending on the methods you use to write your article, somebody might just write me, the editor, and say, you know, what Mr. Jab provided is not valid. Then it's left for that scholar to go and do, additional research and what have you. So we have an association that also carries with it a journal, an academic journal that is, that broadly disseminates information about Liberia or issues about Liberia and the sub-region. Now you have to understand Liberia is also in the sub-region and also have sub-regional partnerships, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me read a few comments because they are coming, and then you can respond. First, James Sosa say, congratulations to all of you for the job well done. Howard Mesga say, and again, just Jackie, please beg my pardon. She said, Prof. Jackie is amazing. With lots of professional resources helping Liberian students, and she's an amazing woman and a true professional. Honored to know you. James said, Fala Taylor, I'm glad to see my senior brother, Dr. To, a brilliant son of Liberia with integrity. Okay, Gibson, we need to reprint key Liberian published books and use them as resources. We were asking, Hawa is also asking for the website, and we provided that. Is there a website, or can this organization gather up archives of historical facts for educational history of Liberia that young people will have access to? Then Peter Carres, Peter is writing, they have the Liberian e-library out there. How can you integrate the Liberian Study Association material with the Liberian e-library so it is accessible to more Liberians? So that's another question there. Please share this broadcast. This is very informative for our young people. If this was a bad news or gossip, we will have a full house. Okay, thank you there. So those are some of the comments. If you can respond quickly before we move on. Dr. To.
Yes. Those are interesting comments. I mean, the Liberian Studies Association and its principal outlet, the Liberian Studies Journal, is complemented by a number of other archival holdings, if you want to consider it that way. So, for example, we have at the Indiana University what has now been called the Liberian Collection. That was the result of scholars who made the daring act to try to recover some of the treasured archival records from the National Archives during the course of the war. Now, I mean, if you and that collection is online, by the way. You can access almost all of the materials. I mean, I had to physically go to the Indiana University to access some of the materials that are not online, but a good amount of the materials are also online. I mean, there are also materials on Liberia that you can find at the British Library, for example. I know they had a project, the Endangered Archives project that they work on, and a good number of the Tubman documents, for example, that came from President Tubman's private library and museum from Totota. You can find those at the British Library Endangered Archives. So what we do at the Liberian Studies Association is to complement, many of these different archives. Is probably the oldest non-colonial archives on the continent. I mean, the British and everybody else and French were organizing archives in all of their different colonies. But the Liberian archives is one of the truly organically African archives. And this is why, everything we've been doing has been to preserve it, but also to build upon it. Now, there's something else I want to say before I give the opportunity to some of my other senior colleagues to speak. I mean, what I have been interested in over the past few years since I've been with the association is to try as much as possible to plug the association into the networks of younger scholars, especially those scholars who are not aware of the association, have not been engaged with it, or are not even aware of the academic materials that we have. And so what I've tried to do, is to look around if there is a Liberian out there who's doing a graduate program or is doing a PhD, for example, whether it be in Japan or in Nigeria or in the US or in the UK. We are constructing a database of those kinds of our colleagues so that we make them aware of what is available in terms of academic material, and we also ask for their contribution. I mean, that way, we can spread the word far and wide, and over time, we are able to make take more and more advantage of what the association and the journal collectively have to offer.
And Dr. To, you said that you can find this at the Indiana, the research center. I just posted the link. I mean,
Yes.
this Liberian Study Journal, why is it in Indiana University? Why not University of Liberia or somewhere else, or your own website?
Well, I'll leave that to Dr. Osejafu and Dr. Kia to respond to. We have had a historic partnership with the Indiana University, but I'll leave that to them to respond.
Dr. Kia?
Well, Indiana University is very important in the sense that, as Dr. To alluded to in his closing comments, has had a partnership with the association. In fact, two of the founding members of the association at Indiana University, one of them, Dr. Willem Stone, is a trained archivist. So actually providing information about the Liberian Study Journal, and not just the Liberian Study Journal, the Indiana Open Source has a lot of information about Liberia. Is actually a service to the institute, service not just to the Liberian Studies Association, but to Liberia in general. You ask about the University of Liberia and the other institutions, they don't really have the capacity now to really provide that kind of service. It would be good to have it at the University of Liberia or one of the universities at home, but they don't have that capacity to be able to provide that service. Jackie and Emmanuel can add to that, but I mean, it's a question of an institution that has a long history of working with the association, having both an interest and a capacity to assist in that area.
Brother Kier is absolutely exact in what he said in terms of capacity. Capacity building is also what we want to do with the University of Liberia, but the evolution of that capacity building will come with serious partnership that we think will enhance the institutions in Liberia. Even during my early days as a member of the association, I have used grant opportunities to take folks to Liberia in 2007 and 8 with other colleagues from NCCU to train and provide workshops and symposia for training. But to get to the heart of your question, why Indiana University? Indiana University because there's been a long-standing relationship with Indiana University and of course, Liberian Studies Association. And I'm so glad Dr. Kier mentioned folks like Valen Stone, Ruth Stone, and several others who have walked through the corridors of Indiana University at one point or the other, or are still there. And the Liberians, they have been very, very supportive, emotionally, fiscally, and otherwise, and as academics. But then when you also look at the history of the Liberian Studies Journal and the association, we also have other partnerships like with Jackie's school, for example, Cornell University, where there's been a stockpile of information on areas of jurisprudence and legal work. That is the archive. Can you imagine if some of these information have not been restored or sustained? Some of us who are here who are doing some work in Liberia, we might not even have option but to start all over again. So we have to be very, appreciative of those who have been able to keep our legacy of academics and education alive. But I think at some point in time, if it's fits or if it's at the heart of the institutions in Liberia, to begin to find ways through our meetings and otherwise to revigorate the partnership with their institution, then we need to be very strategic and intentional
Right.
in terms of how that information gets to them. They have access to those journals. They have access to the materials. But in terms of commitment and dedication to keeping the archive, it takes a lot. And nowadays that we're in this www.com virtual life,
Yeah.
it doesn't come cheap. You know, libraries all over the world, they've moved from brick and mortars, but to sustain those databases takes a lot of work. And I don't know where we are in Liberia in terms of that. Yeah.
Any thought about partnering with other African universities and countries on that?
Well, I think, partnership with other universities, of course, is a possibility, but, soliciting that kind of partnership, it's one thing. We are in the business of being open in terms of partnerships, but the extent of the partnerships have to be very measurable, and it has to be, it has to be reviewed by the board and members of the association. I think there's that possibility, Yeah. As a matter of fact, we had a discussion about that recently, about partnerships. Yeah. Jackie, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jackie, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, no, I know time is far spent. I wanted to bring up some information about the Liberian Studies Association conference, but I just wanted to re-echo what Professor O said, that all of the Liberian laws are codified at Cornell Law School. Milton Convis during the time of Tubman started to codify the Liberian laws, and you can find the traditional laws. You can find all of the laws, codified at the Cornell Law School. So I just wanted to bring that out. So Dennis,
Jackie, please explain that a little more when you say they are codified. What that means?
I'm not a lawyer, but I think that they are put together.
Okay.
They are put together there, and they are stored on the website there. Yeah. So Dennis, one of the other things that we do at the Liberian Studies Association is that we have annual conferences, and these conferences are a way for members to come together and for new members to meet, and for people to present papers, and some of these papers make their way into the Liberian Studies Journal. So every year in May or April, people would let us know before then, that they are desirous of hosting the conference. So this year we were to have it at Cornell. Last year we had it at Concordia University in Chicago, and the year before we had it at Rochester Institute for Technology. We've had it at North Carolina Central University. We've had it Ohio Temple, many places. But unfortunately, because of the COVID, we could not have it at Cornell this year. But we are planning to have it on April 22nd to the 24th, 2021. And it's on our website now. So April 22nd to the 24th, 2021, as a virtual conference. So the call for proposals, we already had the program together, but we are going to put out another call for proposals. So students, scholars, professors, researchers can submit their proposals if they want to be involved in this. And I just want to mention that the conference is held at universities who are able to host and support the conference, because we are not a wealthy organization. And I also want to mention, before I forget, that we do have a president of the association. Her name is Danielle Smith. She's a professor of African American Studies at Syracuse University. And the parliamentarian is Councilor Muhammadu Jones. And then we have Ms. Ian Williams as treasurer. And then we have board members as well. So we are a very structured organization, and we encourage everybody who's interested to join us. The website is there, and they can find more information there.
Jackie, how is this group sustained?
It's sustained by memberships paying their dues, but the dues actually and the subscriptions, they're for the printing of the journal. So if, for example, let's say a university, a professor at a university or a scholar wants to host the Liberian Studies Conference, they will write a letter of intent. This is what we would like to do. We would like to host you all at my university, right? But the university itself must commit to funding this conference. Like I said, we are not a wealthy organization. So we have been lucky so far that all of the universities that have submitted letters of intent, they have hosted the LSA, and move from there.
Dr. To, I look at you as that bridge connecting young scholars, right? What has
Right.
been the progress in that area, and have we been able to form this Liberian scholarly community, especially amongst young scholars?
Well, it's ongoing. I mean, my own PhD has not even been more than a year. Uh, I just I just got it earlier this year, but it is an ongoing process, and a community and a network is gradually expanding. I mean, we have gotten the support of the senior academics, of course. I mean, some of the younger scholars who are now doing their PhDs have actually been supported by some of the older scholars. I know, for example, Dr. Sawyer at the GC has been supportive of a number of scholars, young scholars who are now doing PhDs. We have a number of Liberians who are in the UK now, some are in Japan, some are here in the US. So what I have been trying to do is to create a database and a community of a young, I don't like to call them progressive because we have to distinguish ourselves from many other progressives around. But I think just like you said it, a younger breed that will serve as a bridge between more senior academics and ourselves, but we'll also try to bring new perspectives, and hopefully, we are seeing some uptick in that number. I mean, what I personally have been trying to do is to encourage as many Liberians as possible to go for terminal degrees. Whenever I have discussions with some of my colleagues, I say, the problem of Liberia is not because we have too many broke people. It's actually because we have less. And if we can try as much as possible to increase that number, if it is earth science, if it is nutrition, there is just a lack of specialty, just a lack of Liberians who are specialized at the level of PhDs in Liberia. Other societies for Liberia, for example, the Kenyans, the Ghanaians, the Nigerians. I mean, there is a proliferation, a plethora of young academics who we meet on an everyday basis, but unfortunately, we don't meet our own fellow Liberians. So we've tried to increase that number simply by encouraging them, but also by advising them on how the process of being admitted into a PhD, is. I mean, sometimes it's not so simple. You have to find a supervisor who's willing to work with you. You have to write a research proposal. You have to find funding. You have to be able to withstand the rigorous evaluation. But we are here to say, I mean, we've been part of that process. We've overcome that process. We've passed that mark. And we thank every other young progressive Liberian who's interested in scholarship, but is also interested in policy and just the advancement of knowledge as an inherently qualitative output can come and be a part of this. So there is an outreach process that we are undergoing, and we hopefully over the next couple of months and years, we will be able to reach as many young Liberians as possible.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing the Liberian Studies Association, publisher of the Liberian Studies Journal. And my guests, Dr. George Clay Kia, Dr. Samuel To, Dr. Emmanuel Oresi Jaffa, and Jackie Sayer. If you want to join the discussion, please call. The number is 605-313-6004. The code 791403. We can also post your comments. There was a comment here from Dr. Peter Vulule. He runs the Liberia is an e-library that he has. So he's asking if there can be a collaboration between LSA and the Liberian e-library so that you can have those materials there. Any comment?
I think the contact information is on our website. So if he sends an email, we can get to him and start putting things in the work. I wanted to say something because the LSA is for everybody who's interested in research, not necessarily just Liberians. I just want to say that, because even for this conference that was coming up, we have people who are willing to come from Russia, India, to give papers. So it's for young academics, yes, people interested in Africa, not necessarily only Liberians. Which I just wanted to.
Okay. So when people are coming from India to
Thank you
give,
for that point, Jackie.
Sorry.
what to give the papers on?
The guy from Russia, Alexander Shipilov, his paper was going Liberian participation in trans-border networks in the course of the Civil War.
Mm.
Yeah, so
That's
that was his thing. Yeah.
Let's read a few comments here. KRC Gibson, has the journal has any connection with Tulane University Amistad collection? You also, or have you made any connection with Tulane University? She's also asking for the cost of membership and the requirements. They're on the website, but if you want to go over that quickly.
So it's $100 for professors, right? $75 for students, and $50 for retirees. It
Okay.
is also there, yeah.
You got professors, you have students and retirees.
Yes, retirees and everybody else.
Oh, okay, everybody. I was looking for where I fit.
You're professional.
Dr. Kia, you were also a professor in UMU, in Monrovia.
AMEU.
Yeah, AMEU. Okay. Do you have membership from that side, from NM1 in Liberia, who's also part of it?
Yeah, the dean of the graduate school at AMEU, Dr. Gus Corner, is a member of the association, and we've been trying to encourage, because my appointment is in the graduate graduate program in international relations, which is quite a vibrant program. So we've been trying to encourage not just only faculty members, but graduate students to be on the Journal Liberian Studies Association as well. So that's a project that is in progress. And let me also add, since I just completed a cycle of supervising a couple of master's theses, to say that, based on the work that was produced by those students, it sort of encourage me and should encourage all of us more, as my colleagues have said previously, to stress the importance of research at our institutions at home, not just for the sake of knowledge, but for knowledge production, in helping to provide the kind of informational base from which policy can be formulated. The papers produced by students, cover a number of interesting areas. One of the theses was about the whole Liberian forestry industry. Very, very, very interesting paper. There was another one on gender and structural violence. So a number of interesting work. And so we need to stress the importance of knowledge production and the central role that Liberian universities have to play, that not just AMEU. I'm very happy that the leadership at AMEU sees the importance of that, and they have been very, very supportive in that endeavor. But all of our institutions of higher learning in Liberia certainly need to increase that commitment as well.
Dr. Kia, okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Risi Jaffa.
Yeah, I just want to quickly add that given the question that was asked initially about partnerships with the Amistad program in Tulane, we're not involved in that. It would be nice if they can send us information and we can figure out how it will help us, develop some kind of concrete partnerships if it makes sense, and then we'll take it before our board, and then we'll make a decision. I just didn't want that question to go unresponsive. The other issue I would just want to highlight very quickly, for example, the last two issues, at least the last issue, which Dr. K was a guest editor, was focusing on critical issues in Liberia. I smile because when you look at the depth of what we cover, it's quite interdisciplinary. You know, it's not multi, it's inter. They're all integrated. We have issues on agriculture. Samuel Toh was featured on a wonderful article on colonization process, and you know, and those are things that are important. And Jackie cited this Maltida Newport, which was published 10 years ago. I've even forgotten all about that until she brought it up. So I'm just suggesting that we've had even people who are in road engineering who are now publishing in the Liberian Studies Journal, people who are in the engineering field, agriculture field, and so on and so forth. We've had articles on indigenous knowledge. My first introduction to the Liberian Studies Journal was in an association was in 2004. And my interest was in, you know, mental health in post-conflict Liberia. How do we deal with mental health after the 2 civil wars? How are we going to address it? And so, you know, there's a rich body of literature that should not be taken for granted. And you have people who are not even academics who have written and published and shared their practices with us so we can learn better and do better. Yeah.
And Dennis, Anthony would be happy to hear that the first issue of this journal, it had the Pele traditional political system. It had field notes on tribal medical practices in central Liberia, 2 historical manuscripts from the Kru people, and the AD Journal of a Visit to Liberia in 1827. So the LSA is rich with history. Yes.
Yeah, Anthony, because he's the political guy. Dr. Key, I want to bring in a caller right now, but the question I have for you right after the caller is this whole idea of research in Liberian universities. We kind of throw that word around, but so I want you to really break that down if we want to have research areas at, let's say, University of Liberia or UMU, or what is the process and what would they specifically be doing, just to break it down so that we understand, because it looked like, because these areas are not there, so that vacuum is filled. I don't want to be political, but that's why we hear the too much noise. Zekwe on these campuses. Let me take our first callers. Caller, your name and where you're calling from. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. You get me? Okay, I'm Moses, and I'm calling from Colorado.
Moses, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question or comment?
Thank you very much. First of all, I must thank everybody here. I mean, I go around social media checking up for educative things. And as somebody said in one of the posts there, it was gossip. You will see a lot more attendance. Here is academic, so we don't see that many people. I'm doing my PhD, computer science. But I have followed this program and I see that it is mostly archival. I don't know what I'm wrong, because I later on I'm getting the impression that other people are actually publishing in the journal. So it's a welcome call for some of us who are not in, say, historical data collection and so on and so forth. But I have 2 main concerns. The first has to do with regurgitation of information. Like what most of the panelists have said, there are information that are stored at Cornell, there are information that are stored at Indiana University, and just accessing those information and republishing them doesn't really help in the focus of our academic trend, especially the fact that academics today must focus on solving the problem rather than just enlightening us. It is good to enlighten, but at the end of the day, it must be specific to a problem, a challenge. And Liberia has a lot of challenges that we need to tailor our researches to solve. The second concern that I have, and it's a question, I know academics usually don't want to do political, especially in Liberia, where we have a lot of politicians under the cloak of neutrality and so on and so forth. I can understand that academics will not want to be governmental or go into government or try to seek government help. But looking at how important the research that this team is bringing up, isn't it reasonable that we begin to engage with government to make sure that our researchers just don't get stored in university libraries, but they are actually practical and they become tools for shaping policy going forward. I'm not in the position to make a decision on that, but I just think it is important that as academics, we begin to focus on shaping policy. That means that we have to engage with government, and for funding and so on and so forth. I mean, this is a laudable idea, and I think that we need to take that approach so that we are able to get enough funding for this project. Thank you very much, and it's been wonderful listening to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. To, you want to take that?
Well, I mean, let me speak to that because my own PhD has been more recent. And I can tell you, irrespective of the historical depth of material that have been accumulated since the 50s, I found them to be extremely valuable in contemporary research. I mean, my research focused on the development of the Liberian state, specifically for the period, the immediate post-Second World War period, or the period of William V. Studman. And I was interested in the concept of sovereign rent and the rentier state. And I went to their archives in the Liberian Studies Association, but also at Indiana and every other place. No, it's not regurgitation. It depends on what you want to do with primary evidence and how you want to interpret it. You can interpret it your way and someone else can interpret it their way. So I can say as one of the freshly minted PhDs that you will find the academic resources that we provide through the Liberian Studies Journal and the expertise that is available within the association itself as the best collection of Liberianists you can find anywhere on the planet. And that is a fact because I know it.
If I can just quickly add to that, what Dr. To just mentioned and responding to the question, the Liberian Studies Journal, as I said earlier, as the editor, is interdisciplinary. So over time, you will get manuscripts that have been published from different disciplines. I think the journal is in the forefront of sharing not only historical information, but also very practical information that deals with, current trends in terms of governance and development in Liberia, including cultural issues as well, in terms of gender, in terms of agriculture. One of the recent one that we have, volume 42, there was an article there about agricultural development in Nimba. So again, just to kind of allow the caller to understand that they may need to maybe subscribe to the journal to get a sense of what's really going on. Yeah. So I'm not sure where they got that information from. There are historical data, and there are also more contemporary data in terms of what is going on. And that's why Dr. Kier's last volume, which he had said, say critical issues. These are not just historical issues. They are contemporary manifestations of what may have happened or more current. So, and that's how that goes. But in terms of the journal and the access to it, the archives at Indiana and the archive at Cornell, we ought to be very grateful because we have to be able to sustain those archives. And with 2 civil wars, I think it's important to know that without those access to those archives, some of us will not even have access to some of the historical and literature about Liberia. And you got to understand that we're also contributing to development because we've had practitioners even in government who have come to speak at the association. And so when the caller was asking about the kind of partnership with the government, we are an academic association and we have to be free of that kind of partnership. We need to understand what that partnership means. We want people to be, transparent and also comfortable about writing and about sharing evidence that are primary and secondary to the rest of the world. So it doesn't bode well for us to be political anyway. And I'm sure that's not what that person is saying, but I'm just letting him know that we're not interested in that. I'm going to be blunt in terms of government. We can work with the government, but it has to be defined. you know, what we provide. We've got people writing about engineering, about agriculture, and there's access to it. And you have academics in Liberia for many, many years who have been part of the advisory board and editorial board from Codington, from Liberia, UL, University of Liberia, and now AMU, where one of the graduate administrator is even member of our association. So, you know, it's a wide open field. So we don't want to be parochial by any means. So, but we are open. Thank you.
So you can subscribe without being a member.
Oh, definitely. You can subscribe. That's what the subscription is for. As long as you're paid, you subscribe consistently.
And that's when you subscribe, you pay for the journal. That subscription is a fee.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Kia, you wanted to come in before you even address my
Well, yes, just before I respond to your question about research, I wanted to add a point to what Dr. Richard Jaffo just said. In fact, in the past, in the 36 years that I've been member of the Liberian Studies Association, to Dr. Richard Jaffo, one of his points, there have been deliberate efforts by some Liberian regimes to politicize the LSA, and that was resisted. Because as Dr. Richard Jaffo said, the LSA as an academic institution wants to stand above partisan politics. So as he said, the information is there. So part of the responsibility of every Liberian government, irrespective of what the regime is that its policy making will be informed by information. And so you got to have people in government agencies who will go and find information. So the LSA contributes to that process. So researchers, whether it's from the foreign ministry, education, and what have you, should be able to have access to the body of knowledge that the LSA has generated. So Dr. Richard Jaffo is very, very correct. We got to tread very, very carefully so that the LSA does not become the sort of the intellectual arm of any one particular regime in Liberia.
Then my question on the research.
Well, the question on the research, we have to encourage at our various institutions, particularly at our tertiary institutions, at the level of the faculty and at the level of the students, research has to be integrated into the curriculum itself. And my rationale is that teaching is supposed to inform research and vice versa. So you teach, you generate ideas, you conduct research, you come up with findings, the research supposed to impact your teaching. So those in administrative leadership at the various universities in Liberia have to encourage and ensure that research is a central element of the whole academic enterprise at all levels, the levels of the faculty, as well as the level of the students. And part of supporting that effort is to set up a research infrastructure at each of these institutions to be able to support research, give little seed grants to students and to faculty members to help them encouraging. I think it was Jackie who made a point before. If you look at the investment that our various institutions making research at home, very, very, very minimum. So research is not cheap. So we understand the financial challenges at home, but some investments have to be made in them. And part of that infrastructure then is to also go out, encourage faculty members, find grants to get support. Because almost all of the research that is done in American universities here is grant generated. But these universities have the infrastructure that enable their faculty and students to go out and solicit grants. It can be done in Liberia. It's not impossible to do.
Thank you so much. Well, I learned a lot from this, and hopefully this is just an introduction. We want you to come back. Can I get a commitment?
Well, our boss, Jackie said, our boss man Samuel Tosin, the vice president, said what we do.
Well, I can assure you that we will come back collectively or individually.
Yeah, as the time draws nearer to the conference, we would like to come back to talk more about the conference and get people interested in it.
Definitely. People have a lot of questions. So how can we reach you? You know, someone who's watching this broadcast want to contact you to know about the journal, the conference, and also membership.
We have on the website, under contact, we do have email addresses, you know, that they can send their inquiries to if they want further information. If they go on the membership and they fill out the membership form and click it, it comes directly to my email, and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
Okay, I'm filling mine out tonight.
Okay.
Right.
You have a new member.
Okay.
That's great.
And most of the leadership of the LSA are also on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So you can follow, you can shoot us emails individually if you had any particular questions.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. Let's
Thank
go
you.
around the room and get your closing comments. Samuel, you know, yeah.
Sure. Thank you, John, for the invitation. I think this was a great opportunity to reach out to as many people as possible, those who are listening now and those who will listen later, to say, you know, we are interested in many more Liberians taking advantage not only of the resources that we have as an organization, but also of the community we provide as intellectuals and as academics. And we're here to support as many people as possible. And we will look forward to the partnership with young and emerging scholars who are interested in being a part of that community. Thank you.
Dr. To, let me bring in our last caller. We just got someone slip in here. So we just want to have that opportunity to give that opportunity for this caller to interact. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Yes, hello. My name is Martin Zenway, calling from Cleveland, Ohio.
Martin, welcome to FOL. This is you are one of our regular callers. Thanks so much for your support. Question or comment?
Thank you. I just want to thank you guys for the show. I'm enjoying the topic. I wish I knew this information before, like when I was in college, because I was doing some research on Liberia and I had to go to Liberia to do like actual research. I wish I knew of the organization. One of the things that my question here is, one of the problems we have in our community, is just getting information out. So I want to know, what is this organization doing to, I guess, connect with other organizations, to really promote when it comes to our Liberian scholars. And then another question is, what are they doing on the ground? Because I sometimes go to Liberia and we organize, I'm not going to call any names, we organize teacher seminars and professor seminars. And, just like one of the speakers was saying, information is key and is really missing in our community, especially in Liberia. So we really need a good library for research. We don't have any. And I know we were doing a teaching seminar with professors from Conala, Cottington, and even LU. And just the whole idea of going back and assessing yourself after you teach a lesson, it was foreign to a lot of the professors and teachers, So we are missing out. So what is this organization doing when it comes to research and really promoting research in Liberia? What are they doing to create good infrastructure, and provide good resources on the continent or in Liberia for researchers to use?
I would really love to answer this question, but I'm going to let Jackie answer the first part, but I would like to answer the second part. I think it's very critical. Yeah.
And before you answer that, there's another comment that went in line with it from Howard Metzger. Said, how can this organization collaborate with the schools in Liberia in reference to guiding them? So put those two together, Jackie.
Okay. Actually, it's really interesting because we had a meeting right before we came on, and we discussed this. We are trying to set up a summer research institute where we can work with the University of Liberia and other universities to have to teach research methodology and other things to emerging scholars, and to also help the professors there with their own research and publication. So we had been discussing this. As I said, we are very dependent on membership and membership dues. We are totally apolitical, so we don't want help from any arm of the government. But starting next year, with help from little grants, and if the COVID allows, we will be setting up a research workshop every summer, be it virtual or actual in Liberia. We are going to start doing that because we had discussed that some of the I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, we had some young scholars from Liberia who came to the LSA, and they were totally out of their depth in regards to research, in regards to how to present their papers and things like that. And from there, we started to discuss ways that we could return and do things that way. We've done book drives through Maurice Kofa. We've done book drives in Liberia and things like that. But we cannot be everything, and we cannot touch on everything. What we are trying to do is elevate the discussion to say, okay, we will help the teachers, we will help the professors, we will help the researchers, and they in turn will go and help others. So starting next year, we've decided, I think Samuel was on the discussion as well, to start having research workshops in Liberia or virtual with the young emerging scholars. And then Professor O, you can continue.
Yeah, I thank you, Jackie. I think what you provided is excellent. But let me just kind of add some, what you call a caveat to what Jackie has mentioned, that our involvement in the social development of Liberia regarding education and other social areas predates what we are talking about now. For example, in 2007, 2006, I had a grant in Europe, which I conversely wrote another grant for Liberia that was entitled the Institute for Democracy and Development in a war-torn country, which was supposed to, it provides avenues to train Liberians, practitioners and academics in particular at the universities in Liberia. And we brought them to Monrovia. We had my university in conjunction with Covington University, University of Liberia. The program provide funding for what we call distance learning. We understand the cost of trying to send folks to America or this other country. So my university, which of course is North Carolina Central University, was willing at that time to provide that avenue, which they could have used that infrastructure to improve education among the consortium universities in Liberia. Sadly enough, we provide the funding, and I even brought some folks in 2008, publishers, to Liberia to train academics at that time on the art of research and improve some of these issues that we are talking about. But the point I want to drive in, and it's a good thing that we are apolitical, is that commitment for the social development of our people has to be reciprocal. If you bring somebody all the way from United States or wherever, it doesn't matter until our people are committed to not only receiving that information, but using it to enhance the population. For example, the research that has been published in recent times and in the past, if the government is committed to providing those materials for educational purpose, that's fine. But I mean, you know, and we've done our job in terms of that. We are sending people from here to go and provide a book drive in Liberia. I have about almost 1,000 books that can go to Liberia. But guess what? Nobody wants to pay for it. But you know, it costs money to move books around the world today or anywhere. Somebody has to pay for it. It's sitting down in my storage, but it's 1,000 books on various disciplines. The point I want to get to the caller is this: where we are willing to do workshops, symposiums, and what have you. But the real, what's the word here? The telos, the end result for all these wonderful things, it has to end somewhere. It has to make a difference in the lives of our people. We are willing to do that, but again, it's up to our folks to take that information or the shared knowledge. We don't know better than other people's on the ground. We never profess that we are better than anybody or that we are the sole given expert on everything Liberia, but we are willing to collaborate. We live in a world of collaboration today. And I will just close very quickly by what Jackie said. At one of the meetings even today, I said, look, it's going to be about partnerships. And if this partnerships is not meaningful, we continue to do what we're doing. We've been doing since 1968, but we have room for improvement. So where is the room for improvement in Liberia? And who is willing to step to the forefront of development and say, you know, we have several folks teaching at the universities who are not even qualified to teach. We have to be honest about ourselves. And, you know, and we have these young people who are now pursuing PhDs, pursuing masters, and you have somebody who has an undergraduate degree teaching somebody who is in the master's program. You know, we got to get it right. And some things belong to the government, but we are not waiting for the government, but we will do our best. That's all I want to say. Yeah.
So in other words, if you extend your hand, someone got to hold it.
Yes.
Yeah, if they don't hold it, then we're going to stretch it somewhere else.
Right. And I can relate to that. Even what we are doing, we want to collaborate with radio stations in Liberia.
Correct.
Somebody got to hold a hand.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So we started with our closing comment. Let's go to Dr. Kie before Dr. Risi Jaffo coming.
Well, let me just say briefly, thanks again, Dennis, for the invitation, and thanks to my colleagues for participating. I just want to close on the note, and this is not to belabor the point, but again, as I said in one of my comments, it often gets missing in a number of the discussions I've had the opportunity to either listen to or participate in Liberia. We don't stress enough that ideas matter. Development cannot take place without ideas. Ideas are indispensable to development. Whether we're talking agriculture, whether we're talking healthcare, whatever we're talking about, ideas have to be generated, debated over time as part of a continuous process so that those ideas then can help inform policy making. This is the best route I see, my 2 cents worth, of being able to position Liberia so that we can be able to address the many challenges that one of the callers referred to that the country faces. We cannot make public policy out of thin air, or we cannot make policy just from the top of our heads. Good public policy is informed by good information. My second and final point is that we have to continue, as Dr. Toh said in one of his comments, encourage Liberians to go to school and learn. It ties to my first point. No country can develop unless it has a trained workforce of men and women. Yes, you can get help from others, but no country develops simply by relying on other countries to help them. So thanks again for the opportunity, Dennis.
Thank you so much. Dr. Toh, I'll let you go again because other things happen.
Well, I mean, other than what I say initially, again, I can only emphasize how appreciative we are for this opportunity, and just to assure those who are listening to us that we are reaching out, that we're plugging in to all of the networks as much as we can. And those who can reach out to us should please do so. Some of us are willing to advise them, and we're willing to make suggestions on universities, on different research programs, on how to get grants, how to develop, research proposal, how to find a supervisor if you are interested in all of that. So once again, thank you very much, Ja, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Dr. Risi Jaffo.
Yeah, very quickly. I'm going to take a three-pronged approach here to what I would like to close with. First off, I would like to really thank senior administrators at my institution here in North Carolina from the first 2004 Liberian Studies Conference that we hosted. We've hosted about 2 conferences, and we hope in the future we can even engage in more conferences. But the fact is that the university has provided, no matter how small or big it is, from where we come from, we are always asked, we are always told or trained to be appreciative of the support we get from our institutions. And it's very, very important. As a result of that, I also want to thank the editorial staff of the Liberian Studies Journal. Now, Mr. Dennis, I just want you to know I'm not doing all the work by myself. I mean, this is the group, it's a collective group. And what we've learned over time is that it takes collaboration. One of my colleagues at the university, Dr. James Guse, who is a serious academic as well, has been on the editorial staff, and we've both collaborated on bringing the Liberian Studies Journal in 2007 to University of North Carolina, Central University. And so I need to mention him because he's made some massive contribution to the journal itself, and he's a Liberianist. And thirdly, what I would like to really close out with is very brief. As we've embarked into a new century, the challenges of the 21st century, whether it's global or peculiar to Liberia itself, cannot be better understood, underscored, and addressed without a population that is well informed. And that population has to be involved in the process of the social, economic, and political development of Liberia. And it will take a collaborative work, real commitment from the government about the future of our people, and continuous commitment from us as academics to begin to do better, work better, and improve what we produce. So I encourage everyone to listen to what Jackie has said about information about the association, about the journal, and about our interest. And the way forward will require that we all work together with you, Mr. Dennis, and everyone else out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you have some love here from your Dr. Abdullah Douglas. Greetings to the panel. Keep up the good work. Okay. So Jackie, you're trying, before you start, Jackie was really helped in putting this together to have the Liberia Studies Journal. We want to thank her. So Jackie, your final thoughts.
I echo, thank you, Dennis. I echo everything that those who've gone on before have said. You know, I always quote one of my professors who says that, you know, Japan has no natural resource. It's an island, but it's developed because its natural resource is up here. So Liberians like to say, oh, we have rubber. You can die with your rubber, you know, if you do not have an educated workforce and educated citizenry. Because those who have the knowledge will use the rubber, and all you will be a rubber tapper. We need educated people in Liberia. We need to move the country forward. You know, we need thinkers. We need for people to see that this thing that you're suffering for, there's value in it. One day you will see the benefits in the country. You know, I mean, I can say that when we had it the last time at Cornell, we had Professor Mills, who is involved with the codification process for the Liberian laws. And he said that if they could find somebody in Liberia and they could send somebody to Cornell, he would work with that person for 2 months to teach that law librarian about the codification process for Liberian laws. We sent that request to the University of Liberia, and we're still waiting, almost 4 years later. We need educated people, and we hope that those who are listening here can join us in working, in growing the LSA, and in making other people aware. A lot of people is like the caller, you know, after a few say, oh, there's a Liberian Studies Journal. I didn't know, you know, and everybody has been saying we have to get out more. But you can just Google. If you Google, oh, wait, is there study on Liberia? It will pop up. So just how some of us found it by chance, you can find it too. But now there is a website that will guide you through all of what we have. You know, so I would join others to say, just join us, you know, become a member, present a paper, and, you know, and let us take it from there. And, you know, and I echo what Dr. Kia said, you know, knowledge is essential. And where we are in Liberia's development now, we need educated people to move the country forward. So I thank you, Dennis, and I thank you, Anthony, for inviting us here today. And I hope that we will come back soon.
Definitely. I mean, Jackie has spoken, so what else can you say after she has spoken those beautiful words? Anthony.
Well, I just want to thank the organization for the work they are doing. I am inspired by their work and the wealth of knowledge that they have been able to put together. I want to strongly believe that intended for all of us to benefit from and also help our country and also make people to know about Liberia. I think that is significant work they've done. I can't thank them enough for doing that. Thank you, and keep pushing.
On that
Thank
note,
you, Ansel.
I want to say thanks to all of you and thanks to our viewers, those who commented, those who call in. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us here at Focus on Liberia. We say thank you, good night, and God bless you. We're going to end with our favorite song, We Are All Liberians. And that's the song that closes our broadcast every night to remind all of us that in spite of our political differences, our social, economic class, whether you are part of the LSA or not, we are still all Liberians. Whether you believe our natural resources so much that you think rubber, or you think that it's obvious, we are all Liberians. And together, we are all part of that mosaic. And only that we can move Liberia forward. We are all Liberians, so let me grab my samba and announce
We have a
to
sample as well.
you, good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians.